happen, the U.S. is, for example, moving ever closer to war with Iran. In a speech Monday, the Secretary of State threatened to, quote, crush the Iranian government. Congress may get on board with that. There is a debate right now at this hour on Capitol Hill over legislation that would allow military force against Iran. Keep in mind that the American military is exhausted, our government is broke, and Iran, for all its many faults, is far from the main sponsor of terror against Americans. Not even close, actually, no matter what they tell you. Maybe you support going to war with Iran. It's okay. Maybe you don't support it. But either way, you should know that it could happen much sooner than you think. CNN will not tell you that, so we thought we should, and we're going to follow it, no matter how unpopular it is.
We will track down Iranian operatives and their Hezbollah proxies operating around the world, and we will crush them. Iran will never again have carte blanche to dominate the Middle East. On direct.
They call this hate, and me a hater. Is it hate when America executes a criminal who has committed murder, rape, kidnapping, genocide, etc.? Is it hate when the victim's family sat and witnessed the execution with joy and glee in their hearts and on their faces? Is any of that hate? Is America incorporated? Is there a statute of limitations on murder, rape, kidnapping, genocide, oppression, terrorism, crimes against humanity? If not, then isn't America guilty of all that and more against black people dragged here against their will, who they kidnapped, tore away all traces of humanity? The most horrific crime in history against an innocent people who had done them no harm. 400 years of unimaginable terror. So is it hate for us to seek and pray for justice? America is but days away from war. She touts herself as the indispensable nation. One wonders how the earth ever survived and prospered before her. The graveyard history is full of indispensable nations. Fact is, before the Caucasians, the earth was at peace. Every nation was in their place, enjoying their culture, free of disease, hunger, conflict. The Western Hemisphere was at relative peace, free of the diseases of Caucasians, and prosperous. The land was rich and fruitful, free of contamination/pollution of any kind. If America is so good that she proclaims herself to all the world, daily and often, then why doesn't she conduct herself as a lamp, a light to illuminate the world, rather than a blazing fire which scorches, burns anything and anyone who disagrees or offends her? No, America, you are the evil. America declared war on the original nation from its beginnings. The war is not over. It has just begun. All the cowards, collaborators, false flaggers, traitors will be dealt with in due time. We are at war. They know it. They haven't put down their weapons. They still occupy, oppress, and terrorize the original nation. They mock us by insisting that we honor the flag of our open enemy, that we honor the monsters that raped, beat, tortured, murdered, terrorized, and much more our ancestors. We are at war. We are an occupied people, but we are far from being a conquered people. Ramadan, as practiced/observed by the Sunni and Shia, is based on the lunar calendar. The lunar calendar was based on the limited knowledge that prevailed at that time. Since then, a more precise calendar has been developed, even though it is not 100% correct. It requires an adjustment every 4 years. We will correct that very soon. The current calendar is more correct as stated. However, there are some serious issues with it other than the lunar/solar issue. The first month of the year is March. The first day of spring is the 21st of March, the vernal equinox. The KV changed that at the behest of the emperors who, in deifying themselves, wanted the months named after them. Then there is the Nimrod controversy. If you know Latin or Spanish, then September/September be the 7th month, October, the 8th, November, the 9th, and December, the 10th, which would make January, named after Emperor Janus, the 11th month, and February the 12th. All this makes March the first month, the month of spring, the new year. The Quran teaches that of the 12 months, 4 are sacred. The Sunnis, like just about everything else, has got that all wrong. Elijah had it right. The Sunnis only observe one sacred month, which they call Ramadan. But there are 4 Ramadans, if you will. Presently, it's very difficult to even observe one, and that one is a roving observance every year at different time, which is not correct. The 4 sacred months are the vernal equinox March, the autumn equinox September, the summer solstice June, and the winter solstice December. Elijah observed the winter solstice December. Farrakhan has taken the NOI back 1400 years into ignorance. In the hereafter, we will observe all 4, which is the correct reality, the correct mathematics, the correct Islam. The earth bows to the sun 4 times a year at our command. The observance of this we call Ramadan. Much of the Quran is misunderstood unless you are firmly rooted in knowledge, not bound by the limited knowledge of 1400 years ago. Dajjal, the false Messiah, that will appear just before the judgment, just before the revealing of the Mahdi, according to the sayings of the prophet. Dajjal will entertain with a seductive music which will be irresistible to the unbelieving and the disbelieving. Dajjal will draw all the disbelieving and unbelieving to him with paradise in their eyes. He, Dajjal, is given 40 years to play his song. Then he will suddenly stop, and all those drawn to him will find themselves in hell. Dajjal, having 2 eyes, but blind in his spiritual eye, will have a very bright technical eye. Dajjal will be a prince of analytical thinking, but dead in spatial thinking. Dajjal will think himself immortal. He will be oblivious to his doom until the angels of death have encompassed him round about through and through. Then his spiritual eye will open long enough to glimpse the angels, but it is plucked out before it is plucked out and crushed. As the Hadith reveals, he will have the word kafir, unbeliever, written clearly on his forehead for all to see, even the illiterate. But those drawn to him will see the word Messiah. Those who have found grace with Allah will see and understand the word kafir, even if they are illiterate, meaning even if they can't speak or read Arabic. Virtually all the Sunnah will be seduced by him, 72 out of 73 sects, which is 98.6%. The Jal is clearly the Caucasian nations led by Satan, false Israel, with America being his bright eye. His siren song is all the technology that has been flowing out of America the last 40 years like a rushing river. Before the 80s, there was no cell phones, no internet, no GPS, no laptops, no PCs, no stealth technology, no drones, no Facebook, no Twitter, no social media, no flat screens, no Skype, robots, etc., etc. The Giles 40 years are all but expired, and we see the world, even the Sunni world, mesmerized in a trance in the presence of the Jal. We see Sunnis rushing to the Jal side in groves. They can't get here fast enough, soon enough. Anyone who resists the Jal or points him out is called shirk, or worse. Anyone who opposes or resists the Jal is called terrorist. We see that the Sunni world has allied themselves with the Jal against the Shia. No wonder the Prophet denounced the generation of the Jal. They, his Ummah, called Sunni, would openly ally themselves with the Jews and Christians against other Muslims. It's bad enough to take Christians and Jews, apes and swine for friends in any venue or circumstance, but against others who praise the Prophet and worship Allah, not only ally themselves with the Jal, but the Sunni are actually planning and assisting in an attack against Iran and Syria, the two horns of the Shia, the disciples of Isa. If they only knew of a surety that Isa is and will be with the Shia, along with the Mahdi, their 12th Imam, who will crush the Jal and break the back of the Sunnis. When your own prophet prophesies that 98.6% of you, his followers, Ummah, are held bound, then I would say you have a problem. The prophet stated that after the third generation from him, 72 out of 73 of Ummah will be held bound, which is 72 divided by 73, or 98.6%. Now, if you ask, every Sunni will declare that they are the one true Ummah, the 1.4% that are following the correct path of the Prophet. It's no wonder that the Bible refers to Sunni Islam as the golden calf, to be shunned. We see the royal family of Saudi Arabia, the supposed leader of Sunni Islam, is called the dragon in the Injil, the dragon whose power rests with the Caucasian nations, particularly Gog, Magog, and the Antichrist, America, Britain, and false Israel, respectively. We see the dragon fighting against Michael and his angels. The angels of Michael are the Shia, yes, the same Shia that the Sunni despise and hate. The Shia are the chosen of Farad, the Mahdi. Thus, an epic battle is about to take place in the Middle East between the Shia and the Sunni backed by Gog, Magog, and Antichrist. The Shia, backed by Farad, the Mahdi, as prophesied, the dragon will be defeated and its angels, America, Britain, and false Israel, thrown out of the Middle East. The Sunni will be vanquished, its intransigent leaders chasing after their embodied heads. The two witnesses are Syria and Iran, who openly oppose false Israel, the Satan. They call false Israel by name, Satan. The Shia are the true descendants of the disciples, the true followers of Jesus. They heard Jesus' message about Ahmed, the Holy Spirit that will follow after him, and submit it. They, the Shia, are the angels of Michael, aka Farad, aka the Mahdi. Farad is their 12th Imam, and he is about to reveal himself to them. He will guide, support, and fight with them against Gog, Magog, and the Antichrist, America, Britain, and false Israel, respectively. The Shia are the rod of iron that Farah will use to subdue and control the nations. The Shia are Farah's elect. The witnesses are the crowns of the European nations. Each nation has two crowns, which is symbolic of their Muslim population. The Shia are the crowns that after 42 years of witnessing against the setting up of false Israel in 1948 were cast down in 1990, result of the so-called Gulf War. They were thrown down and left for dead for 24 years. 3 years plus half of the 42 years is 24 years, until 2014, at which time they would begin asserting themselves, leading to the war for dominance of the region in 2018. The Shia are the most faithful to Prophet Muhammad's teaching, which might be why the Sunni hate them so. The Prophet himself said 98% of his Ummah, the Sunni, were hell-bound. The Sunni have allied themselves with Satan, the Dajjal, Gog, Magog, and the Antichrist. They have allied themselves with the Jews against the Shia. What more proof is there? Quote, O you who believe, take not the Jews and Christians for friends. They are friends of each other. And whoever amongst you takes them for friends, he indeed is one of them. Surely Allah guides not the unjust people. End quote. In the Injil, every nation is divided into three categories: Islam, idolatry, and capitalism. Make no mistake, capitalism is a religion. Religion is not philosophy. Religion is one's way of life. And the way of life of the so-called West, the European nations, is capitalism, the religion of leeches, the religion of exploitation, the religion of the profit. And I don't mean Profit. Profit is your degree of exploitation by definition. Maximum profit means maximum exploitation, which is slavery. That's what leeches do. They take and give nothing back. If allowed, they will suck all the life from you before moving on to the next victim. That's why America is perpetually seeking out new markets to plunder. If you resist, they attack and suck out all they can, leaving nothing but anemia in their wake. As the Quran says, they are a burden to the earth. The Bible casts them as a lion searching around for what it can devour. Leeches is what they are, not acting leeches, not acting like leeches, they are leeches. America and Britain invade the Middle East, Iraq, in 1990 at the command of their master and God, false Israel. They lift up false Israel and secure false Israel's control of Jerusalem. The Shia are the two witnesses that struggled against the Antichrist for 42 years, from false Israel's conception until the invasion by Gog and Magog in 1990. The invasion by America and Britain, led by the Antichrist, disrupted the power balance in the Middle East. They became the controlling or dominant forces in the Middle East, superseding the authority of the Shia with the Arabs' support. The Arab Sunnis secretly ally themselves with the Antichrist. The money changers, the capitalists, America, Britain, so-called Israel, have taken over the temple, Jerusalem. America's aggression in the Middle East in 1990 is their first overt attack on Islam. The Soviet Union has collapsed, and America has turned her full attention to the eradication of Islam. Islam is an capitalist nightmare. The fundamental pillar of capitalism is usury, credit. The Quran reveals that Allah is against usury and at war with the users, the banks. Islam is truly conservative, which is an anathema for capitalists. Capitalism and democracy is incompatible with Islam. Democracy is a decadent force which ever lowers the standards and morals of the people. Nature tells you that if your mind is controlled by your body, that disaster is your future. Why would a wise person follow the masses? It's the masses that need to follow the light of the wise. 85% of any nation have general knowledge, functional knowledge. 10% have actionable controlling knowledge, while only 5% have advanced knowledge called wisdom. Why would the 5% follow the blind 85%? Would even a blind man want to be led by another blind man? Democracy is one of Yaqub's tricks to blind a nation while they rip it off. Capitalism is the economy of leeches. Capitalism is the economics of leeches. It is not self-sustaining. If it were, why wouldn't the authors and practitioners of capitalism stay in Europe and apply it there? They didn't for the same reason leeches can't sustain themselves and stay in place. They need something to live off of, to suck its blood. When they run out of others to suck their blood, they die. Capitalism only works when they have new victims from which they can leech off of. America opened up trade with China, a new market, for the purpose of exploitation. They call it trade when it's really exploitation. They have set up destabilization zones in every region of the world for that purpose, so as to destabilize the region. Taiwan, false Israel, apartheid South Africa, etc., allowing them to steal and exploit the region's wealth and resources. They claim they want a free market, but they never pay the real cost of the resources they are plundering. They set up puppet governments in wake of their destabilization to virtually give away the nation's resources for nothing. Any nation who tries to extract a fair price for their resources gets the treatment: destabilization, overthrown by some coup, puppet regime installed, their economy and resources put under the de facto control of America. Any payments to the government for resources America has plundered, stole, exploited are held by American banks under America's control. Once the country is drained of its resources, or if the country is somehow successful in breaking America's lethal grip, the money they have in the American banks are seized for some violation of human rights or some other contrived offense. That's exactly what happened to Iran. Iran was a democracy. They tried to gain control over their own natural resources. America destabilized and overthrew the government, installed the Shah, who could teach Saddam Hussein a few things. When the people rose up and expelled the Shah, America seized all of Iran's oil money that the Shah had put into the American banks. Billions, perhaps trillions of dollars. So America effectively did not pay a dime for the oil they supposedly bought from Iran for years. Did America ever pay anyone for the free labor and lives they stole and snuffed out from the original black nation for 400 years? They even worship and honor the icons of the theft, the genocide, the rape, and oppression. Columbus, Washington, Jefferson, the so-called founding fathers. Capitalism is Islam's natural enemy. America is at war with Islam. Make no mistake, it is war. America has established a foothold for capitalism with false Israel. America invaded Iraq under the pretext of WMD, but its real purpose was to set up shop in the Middle East, expanding its reach far beyond the borders of false Israel. That is what the money changers parable is all about. The money changers are the capitalists who is setting up shop in the temple, the Islamic world, Jerusalem. Jesus having to beat them out. Esau, the fifth trumpet, leading the Shia, beats America, Britain, and false Israel out of the Middle East. This act triggers all-out war between Islam and the money changers, the capitalists. We must not forget the lesson of King Philip of France, who wiped out the Knights Templar, who France was in great financial debt to. When the Knights Templar demanded their money, King Philip gathered all the leaders to a supposed meeting to discuss the debt. But at the meeting, he labeled them heretics and had them all burned at the stake. No more debt. Suddenly, France was debt-free. That's the way of the West. They have no intentions of paying their debt to China. A contrived war where the vanquished pays reparations for the war, and there is no one to claim the debt. That's the way of the leech. Martin Luther King is the dreaming prophet prophesied to appear in the midst of the enslaved original nation in the last hours. He would preach and prophesy dreams. He would be a black Caucasian, filled with the hopes of being accepted and united with his slave master daddies. He would open the doors to the masters, their daddies' house for his brethren to enter. He would not be a prophet to the original people. He would be a prophet of Satan with his contrary message of reconciliation and integration. A poison pill, if there ever was one, for the original people. We need not reconcile for anything. He will tell dreams, prophesy dreams, mesmerizing the people with his gift of articulation. But it is ordained that he should be killed as he opposes the true messenger, Elijah Muhammad, confusing and dividing the people, clouding the true message from the messenger. After having met with the true messenger, one who does, as opposed to one who dreams, he refuses to desist nor reform, which he brings his sentence of death upon himself. He was a prophet of the slave master's bastards. They heard the call of their shepherd and rushed to and embraced him. Finally, accepted by and from Daddy, their most fervent dream, a dream that the dreamer delivered for them. They won in, we won out. Martin Luther King was a hidden enemy. We see that his companions, disciples, all have declared war on blacks that do not share their love of the slave master. They act, walk, and talk like their slave master daddies. They love their slave masters' names because that is their real and proper names, as they are the slave master's true biological children. Even though the Martin Luther Kings successfully begged their daddies, the slave master, to open up the door of his house, Daddy still hasn't put out a welcome mat for them. Daddy still sees them as bastard children who just won't go away. He doesn't want them and continually plans on ways to be rid of them. Who wants a daily living reminder of what they flushed down the toilet? Who wants the evidence of their funk displayed before all the world to see and smell? But they love Daddy. They don't want to run away like other slaves do. They want Daddy to love them like he loves his white children. However, even a child in love with his daddy will leave Daddy's house if he sees it's on fire. They will never agree with the original people. They will never understand the original people, no more than we or will or can understand them. They are of a different world, a different nature, a different reality. You will never get them to agree with you on anything, no more than their daddies would. They would be offended by everything that Elijah taught, everything that Elijah stood/stands for, just as we, the original people, are offended by Martin Luther King, what he advocated and what he stood for. Martin Luther King was a prophet to the slave master's bastards, and they heard him loud and clear. The Shia are about to rise. They have been threatened by Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump has ripped up the agreement that they are a signature to, an agreement that Iran is in total compliance with, threatening Iran that they must adhere to the agreement while America does not. Mr. Trump is preparing for war with Iran at the behest of false Israel. The Shia arise. After 24 years of attacks, exploitation, and oppression, and with the assistance of Iran and Russia, they, the Shia, throws the money changers, capitalists, out of the temple. The Shia kicks America, Britain, and false prophet out of the Middle East forever. Gog and Magog have been kicked out of the Middle East. False Israel is under siege to be broken and violently expelled. America and Britain, Gog and Magog, go to war with Russia and China. The thrones, authorities, and the NOI are cast down. A revolt. The Ancient of Days, Suleiman, sits. The gospel, Injil, is open and finally being preached correctly. The desolation of a parliament occurs, an act of desperation by Gog and Magog. The four winds blow, 4 plagues against Pharaoh, Mr. Trump. Let my people go. The plagues are so great and vengeful that America, Britain, Gog, and Magog are forced to give up their captives, the blacks. But the blacks are of 2 categories: the original people, the wheat, and slave master bastards, the chaff. They both come running from Pharaoh's wrath to the Ancient of Days, to the NOI. The Ancient of Days sorts out / separates the wheat from the chaff / tares and throws the chaff / tares back to their fathers, the slave masters, into the fire. Farad relocates the original blacks to the Middle East where they are reunited with their brothers, the Shia. Those of the NOI who were followers and supporters of Farrakhan / Aaron are presented with clear evidence of the liar, deceiver, along with all other original people who offended Suleiman are left behind to enjoy the tribulation. Those who survive that chastisement will be saved. Same complexion, 2 differing natures, differing visions, differing realities, differing hopes and aspirations. One wants out, the other wants in. One calls the slave master a bastard, the other calls the slave master daddy. One hates the slave master, one loves the slave master. One wants separation, one wants integration. One sees the devil, the other sees Jesus. One is called by his ancestor's name, the other is called by the slave master's ancestor's name. Guess who is who? Can they really agree on anything? Are not they ideological enemies at least? Ideological enemies soon become physical enemies. One or the other gets the upper hand. During the 400 years of unrelenting, unrestrained rape by innocent female infants, girls, and women, the slave masters practiced an extreme version of, quote, Jos Premier Nocus, end quote, in which the aim was to breed or generate a domesticated version of the blacks. This was practiced by all the European powers, specifically the Spanish, and the English. The island of Guam, for example, the Spanish killed all, and I mean all, the males and took the women, so in effect, the Guamanians are all Spanish and all Catholic, completely domesticated, totally loyal to the Caucasians. In Australia, it was official policy to breed out the blackness from the Aborigines, though it wasn't official policy in America to, quote, breed out the blackness, end quote. The aim, in effect, was the same. They found the original blacks too difficult to enslave, too difficult to manage. So by raping the females in their practice of, quote, Jos Primer Noctis, end quote, while still virgin, they would ensure that child was spawned by them. They would not stop at the first night. They continued until pregnancy, keeping her away from all black male slaves. 400 years later, they have succeeded in creating a domesticated version of the original blacks that first landed on the shores of America. A domesticated slave who, for all appearances, looks black, but are in fact Caucasian, whose loyalties and love is to them. The scriptures are very clear about this. They are the seed that was planted with the wheat, the chaff planted by an enemy, that was left to grow with the wheat until the harvest, when the Son of Man will weed them out and cast them into the fire. These are the days of vengeance. Vengeance for what? Europeans have been exacting terror, oppression on us for over 400 years. Not just us, but also on the Islamic world in general. Their aim is the destruction of Islam. They are waging war on us. Now is the time for vengeance. They will pay through their teeth for ever touching the apple of God's eye. We will send a message to all the nations, a message they will understand and never forget. No nation will dare to even think to oppose us ever again. The Son of Man is preparing his army. First, he must flush out the cowards, the traitors, the infiltrators. Flushed out and flushed down the toilet they will be, in a moment, in the twinkling of your eye. The story of Balaam is a story of Farad and his interaction with the original nation called Nenoi, held captive and hostage in America. It's a story of America's hatred of the original people and desire to harm the original people to its ultimate destruction. As has been repeatedly stated, all the stories of the Bible are under a veil that can only be lifted by Suleiman using his key. The key is the angel called the Gospels. It is the key to paradise, the key to the Lamb's book of life. The key is being offered. If you refuse your own salvation. I have provided the key and how to use it.
The U.S. is, for example, moving ever closer to war with Iran. In a speech Monday, the Secretary of State threatened to, quote, crush the Iranian government. Congress may get on board with that. There is a debate right now at this hour on Capitol Hill over legislation that would allow military force against Iran. Keep in mind that the American military is exhausted, our government is broke, and Iran, for all its many faults, is far from the main sponsor of terror against Americans. Not even close, actually, no matter what they tell you. Maybe you support going to war with Iran. It's okay. Maybe you don't support it. But either way, you should know that it could happen much sooner than you think. CNN will not tell you that, so we thought we should. Now we're going to follow it, no matter how unpopular it is.
The message of Balaam and Balak. Balak are the Jews who attempted to buy Farad off, tried to get him to reinforce the lie that blacks are the cursed son of Noah, condemned to everlasting bondage and servitude to white people. They failed. Farad blessed the black people instead, as was his purpose. Balaam/Farad raises Elijah, and Elijah raises Farrakhan, the ass that Balaam rides in Elijah's absence. But Farrakhan, the ass, is afraid of the angel with the sword who is offended by Balaam's teachings. The angel is Sunni Islam who stands in the way of the NOI, who wants to stop the progress of the NOI, who is pressuring the NOI to stop. The ass/Farrakhan bends to the pressure from the Sunni and as a result is chastised by Farad/Balaam. Farad chastises the ass/Farrakhan 3 times for bending to and teaching Sunni Islam, the golden calf. The last chastisement kills the ass/Farrakhan, which is what is Balaam's intention. Farrakhan is calling himself the Son of Man. The scripture is calling him an ass. Let's see who is correct. Balaam comes to visit the original nation in bondage in America. Balak the Jews wants Balaam to bestow the curse of Ham on the original people. Balak has disguised himself as Israel to receive the blessings and inheritance of Abraham and cast the original nation as Ham, the son of Noah, condemned to perpetual slavery. Balak, the Jews are seeking to deceive the nations into believing that they are Abraham's seed and the owners of the land of Israel and Jerusalem. To that end, they need to cast true Israel, the original nation, captive in America as Ham, the cursed son of Noah, doomed to perpetual slavery. Balaam, aware of the Jews' plot of deception, goes to visit the original nation to bestow on it its rightful inheritance in defiance to the Jews' plot. Balak, the Antichrist, proceeds with their plans, having failed to buy off Farad, called Balaam, promising him through Elijah Muhammad great wealth and status. Balak has failed to get Balaam to declare the Jews Abraham's seed and the blacks Ham, the son of Noah, cursed to eternal slavery. The original nation receives the blessing while the Jews receive the curse. A son is conceived in 1948, Suleiman, the son of man, who will bless the earth with peace and life. False Israel, the Antichrist, is conceived in 1948, who has cursed the earth with nothing but conflict and death. Darius the Mede, the son of Esther, and King Ahasuerus. We find Darius mentioned in the book of Esther and in the book of Daniel. In Esther, he is the son of King Ahasuerus and Queen Esther. Queen Esther is a Jew, which is why he is called Darius the Mede. It was the custom for the child to be called whatever the mother was, a tradition that began during Roman occupation of Palestine, where the Romans were raping the women. So if your mother was Jewish, so were you, which goes against biblical law. That is one of the motivational reasons for Jesus' declaration that those who claim they are Jews are not, but the synagogue of Satan, because the biblical law states that you are whatever your father is. Darius the Mede, the son of King Ahasuerus, makes him a prince, which is why Daniel calls Michael the great prince. Michael is Darius. King Ahasuerus was an original man whose kingdom ran from India even unto Ethiopia, over 120 provinces. His throne was said to be in Persia, modern-day Iran, at Shushan the palace. He is repeatedly associated with Iran, which we know is the throne and stronghold of the Shia. Darius the Mede, the son of Ahasuerus, an original powerful man, Nestor, a white Jew. Darius took down Babylon during the time of Belshazzar, an African king. Darius, a prince, is Michael the prince. You really have to study Daniel. Daniel is not like the angel. So Daniel does have a key, and it is sealed as the angel is. Daniel relies heavily on very, very subtle riddles. Darius, the son of an original man and a white woman, is Farad. Farad will do all the things ascribed to Darius. Daniel is also Joseph, the solver of riddles. Daniel and Joseph are both symbolic of the Son of Man, Jonah. Studying Daniel and Joseph, we see that there is a duality there which is addressed by Jonah. According to Daniel, Darius overthrew Babylon/America while Belshazzar/Obama, the African king, reigned. But the report in Joseph is that Babylon, Egypt/America was spared until the next Pharaoh, Mr. Trump, because Belshazzar heard Joseph's prophecy and responded, while Belshazzar did nothing. Daniel is also Joseph, the solver of riddles. Daniel and Joseph are one and the same, as well as Jonah. Quote, "Then said I, Lo, I come in the volume of the books. It is written of me to do thy will, O God." End quote. Which means that nearly all the main characters are aspects of the Son of Man's life. Daniel further states that a king of fierce countenance will arise as understanding riddles. This is the Son of Man he's talking about, breaking the seals of Daniel and the angel. The story of Balaam is a story of Farad and his interaction with the original nation called Benoi, held captive and hostage in America. It's a story of America's hatred of the original people and desire to harm the original people to its ultimate destruction. As has been repeatedly stated, all the stories of the Bible are under a veil that can only be lifted by Suleiman using his key. The key is the angel called the Gospels. It is the key to paradise, the key to the Lamb's book of life. The key is being offered. If you refuse your own salvation. I have provided the key and how to use it. After Elijah's departure, Farrakhan, symbolized as a donkey/ass, has taken Elijah's seat. The NOI has fallen. Balaam/Farad is riding Farrakhan the ass with setting in Elijah's seat. Farad directs Farrakhan to keep on the path of Elijah, but the ass, seeing the angel who represents Sunni Islam standing with his sword in his hand, turns aside in fear and runs into the field where the angel directs him. Later, we are told that the angel was offended by Farad's/Elijah's teachings and threatened to kill their organization, but let Farrakhan live if he desisted from that teaching and taught Sunnism instead. Because of his cowardice, Farad smites him, punishes him with disembowelment. After punishing Farrakhan the first time, the ass continued to fear the angel as opposed to Farad/Balaam. This time his fear caused the NOI to be crushed with many of its members lost. This occurs during the Great War, the time of unprecedented trouble, where the NOI is forced to suffer tribulation because of their rejection of Suleiman and worship of Farrakhan and the golden calf, Sunnism. Farad punishes Farrakhan the ass a second time with universal humiliation. He is openly condemned and cast out. Finally, after having severely punished the ass 2 times, the judgment has arrived, and the ass/Farrakhan, quote, the mouth, unquote, is judged and found in error, and sentenced to death, the third and final punishment. In the judgment, Farrakhan asks why he was punished as he was 3 times. Balaam, who is very angry, responds, because of your cowardness, betrayal, and making mockery of the teachings and the believers. Farrakhan replies, did I ever do anything like that under Elijah? Farad says no. Later, in a discussion with the Sunni angel, the angel admitted that he had threatened Farrakhan and the NOI if he didn't turn away from Farad's teachings to Sunnism instead. Farad realizes that Farrakhan acted out of fear, which was the same motivation that Aaron claimed, and lamented killing him. But he did not repent of his decision, as Farrakhan should not have sat in Elijah's seat if he didn't have the courage of Elijah. Fear is never an excuse for any representative of God. The war in the Middle East is about to break out. The war between Farad and his Shia army and the Sunni and their armies, America, Britain, and false Israel, Gog, Magog, and the Antichrist. Farad and his Shia army, Iran, Syria, Iraq, will soundly and humiliatingly defeat Saudi Arabia, America, Britain, and false Israel. America and Britain will be thrown out violently, while the Shia will lay siege to false Israel, overthrow, and exact a grievous revenge before throwing the survivors into the sea. Once the war in the Middle East starts, there is no stopping it. It will escalate quickly. America blaming Russian assistance for her humiliating defeat by the Shia will go to war with Russia and China. China has a secret alliance with India, which will bring India into the war. In desperation and spurred on by the evangelicals who are infuriated, obsessed, and apoplectic over false Israel's defeat, will commit an horrific act against Jerusalem, which will bring the full wrath of Farad and Suleiman upon them. Time of unprecedented trouble. That will be the time of the resurrection of blacks in America. The original blacks to everlasting life, the fake blacks, slave masters, bastards, and rebellious originals to everlasting shame and contempt.